Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there lived a kind and beautiful princess named Snow White. She had skin as white as snow, lips as red as roses, and hair as black as night. She lived in a grand castle with her stepmother, the queen. But the queen was not kind. She only cared about being the most beautiful in the land. Every day, the queen stood before her magic mirror and asked, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And every day the mirror replied, "You, my queen, are fair and tall, but Snow White is the fairest of all." The queen's eyes grew cold. "Snow White? How dare she?" she hissed. Jealousy filled her heart. She called for the royal huntsman. "Take Snow White into the forest," the queen ordered. "Make sure she never returns." The huntsman took Snow White deep into the woods. But when he saw her kind eyes and innocent face, his heart softened. "Run," he whispered. "Run far away and never come back. You must hide." Snow White ran through the forest, frightened and alone. Until she found a tiny cottage. She peeked inside and saw 7 little beds, 7 tiny chairs, and 7 sets of everything. "Hello," she called softly. "Is anyone home?" No one answered. Tired and hungry, Snow White curled up on one of the beds and fell asleep. That evening, the owners of the cottage returned. It was 7 dwarfs who worked in the mines. They found her fast asleep. "Who is she?" whispered Bashful. "She's beautiful," said Happy. "Let's wake her gently," said Doc. Snow White opened her eyes and gasped. "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to intrude. I was lost in the forest." The dwarf smiled. "You can stay," said Doc, "as long as you like." So Snow White stayed with them. She cleaned the cottage, cooked delicious meals, and sang sweet songs. The dwarfs grew to love her like a sister. But back in the castle, the queen asked her mirror again, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" The mirror replied, "Queen, you are lovely, that is true, but Snow White still lives, and she's fairer than you." Furious, the queen made a wicked plan. She disguised herself as an old peddler woman and set off for the dwarf's cottage. She knocked on the door with a crooked smile. "Sweet child, would you like an apple?" she said. Holding out to Snow White took the apple politely and took one bite. Her eyes fluttered shut and she fell to the ground. The apple was poisoned. The queen cackled and disappeared into the forest. When the dwarfs returned, they were heartbroken. "She won't wake up," Grumpy said sadly. They made a glass coffin and placed her gently inside. Day after day, they watched over her. One day, a prince came riding by and saw the sleeping Snow White. "She is so lovely," he said softly. "May I say goodbye?" He kissed her gently on the forehead, and suddenly, Snow White stirred. Her eyes opened. "Where? Where am I?" she whispered. The dwarfs cheered. Snow White was alive. The prince smiled. "Will you come with me, Snow White? Let me take you to my kingdom." Snow White agreed, and they rode off together. The dwarfs waved goodbye, happy to see her safe and smiling. And from that day on, Snow White and the prince lived happily ever after. The end.